Our story begins with a female driver sitting in her car at a gas station, when suddenly she sees a little boy knocking on the window, his hands tied and his mouth sealed with tape. So the driver gets nervous and rolls down the window to try to understand what's going on. And the boy says to her, "Please help me and take me with you to the city. A woman took me away from my family by force and she wants to get rid of me." At that moment, a woman named Anya appears. She had just come out of the market at the station carrying some items in her hands. So the driver tried to reassure the boy and went to confront Anya himself, intending to hand her over to the police. And that's when the shock happened. She answered him very calmly and said, "This is my son. And if you want to call the police, you're more than welcome to do so." And I have no problem with that. As soon as the police arrived, the boy insisted on his story and didn't change anything. And he told the police, "I don't know her at all, not even remotely." Anya told the officer, "Take him with you to the station if he's going to be this stubborn. And there, let him figure out how he's going to live his life because I have work to do and I'm in a hurry." And when the boy heard the mention of the police station, he apologized and told them it was a prank. "I was just joking. This is my mom." So the officer scolded him and told him not to pull this stunt again. And after that, we found out that the boy's name is Vladik. And he did all this just because his mother wanted to stay in the village with his grandfather, whom he doesn't like and has never met in his life. Because she had to go on a work trip and had no choice but to leave him with his grandfather. So here, Vladik wanted to stay in the city and participate in the artificial intelligence competition. And in his situation, if he stayed with his grandfather, he would miss out on the opportunity because he had to attend the presentation in person and with his guardian's approval, so he spent the whole trip upset, feeling like his mother was selfish and only thought about herself, but she reminded him and told him that this job is what allowed her to buy him the laptop so he could participate in competitions, so he should actually be grateful to her. At that point, Vladik put on his headphones and didn't respond to her because he didn't like what she said. After that, they arrive at the village, and Vladik was looking out the car window with disgust, saying, "Is it possible that normal people actually live in these kinds of wooden houses and tents?" His mother felt insulted because she was born and raised in this place. When they arrived at the house, they saw someone running out and shouting because her father, who is Vladik's grandfather, was holding a rifle, chasing after him and trying to kill him because they had argued over a game. We learn that her father is very short-tempered and gets angry over the smallest things. Suddenly, the father heard Anya's voice saying, "Dad, let him go. It's not right to act like this in front of your grandson." So the grandfather stood frozen in place because he hadn't known anything about his daughter for 12 years. And now she had come back with a boy. She explained to him and said, "This is my son, Vladik." And since she was his daughter, it didn't take a genius to figure out that he was his grandson. So Anya started hinting at the subject gradually, and she told her father, "I started a marketing agency, and this agency is a crucial project and I have to travel because there's a competing company that wants to steal my client from me." She told him straight out, "I came to you so I could leave Vladik with you for 3 days. Her father was surprised and said, "If it has come to this, then it's better to leave Vladik with a nanny than to leave him with me." Now, let's go back in a flashback and see the last nanny Anya brought for Vladik, and honestly, because of Vladik's antics, the nanny felt it would be better to live in poverty than to spend even 1 day with Vladik, because Vladik is a very mischievous and troublesome boy. Now, let's return to the present time. And Anya didn't want to involve her father in these kinds of details, but her father was holding a grudge against her in his heart because he had been waiting for her for many years to come visit him, but she never did. And now she visited him only for her own benefit, just to leave her son with him. So he refused her request, left her, and went to feed the chickens. And here she used the weapon of emotional blackmail and started talking to herself out loud so that he could hear her. And she said that a girl should marry someone who is like her father. That's why I left my husband, because he didn't stand by me in tough times. Then her father understood and said, "I agree he can stay with me and you can travel. I feel sorry for you, but don't forget I'll only keep him for 3 days." Anya was happy and ran to her car without even saying goodbye to her son. Vladik told his grandpa, "I need the bathroom." So the grandfather took Vladik by the hand to an old wooden shack in the garden, and Vladik was shocked by what he saw and started screaming, and he ran after his mother's car, but she was already far away. So Vladik went back to the house feeling hopeless, and he found his grandfather sitting in the garden with his rooster. At this point, Vladik was thirsty from running, and his grandfather gave him water from the chicken bucket. But Vladik argued with his grandfather because he wasn't used to this, and his grandfather grabbed him by his clothes and told him, "Don't even think about running away again." And he told him, "Life here isn't easy, because meals are at set times, and if you miss a meal, I won't make it for you again. You'll have to wait for the next meal." And now take your things and go to your mother's room. So Vladik did go to his mother's room, and there he tried to open the laptop to entertain himself. But there was no Wi-Fi signal, not even internet on the phone. So Vladik went downstairs and asked his grandfather about the internet connection. And the grandfather was surprised and asked him, "What do you mean by internet?" Vladik tried to explain it to his grandfather in a simple way, but all of this was in vain, because the grandfather lived in a different world. A world of nature and animals, far from progress and technology. And here, the grandfather turned this discussion into advice and stories of imaginary heroics. At this point, Vladik got annoyed, took his phone, and started wandering around the place, stopping at every corner hoping to get internet, to the extent that he even climbed on top of one of the wooden cabins, but the roof broke and Vladik fell right into the middle of the chicken coop. And the grandfather came and saw him, so he told him, "Tomorrow you'll go out and fix what you broke with your own hands." Here, whoever makes a mistake has to take responsibility for it and fix it. He also told him, "Walk around the village, maybe you'll find a signal for that thing you call the internet." And indeed, Vladik took his grandfather's advice and went for a walk around the village until he found himself at a very tall tree. So he brought a broken tree trunk, leaned it against the big tree, and climbed up. The grandfather watched Vladik from afar. His farmer aunt arrives and asks, "Worried he'll fall?" The grandfather replies, "No, I'm happy," because he didn't give up. That's why he decided to try climbing the tree to get a signal. At that moment, Vladik managed to get internet access and quickly called his friend telling him, "Register me for the competition, but tell the competition organizers that I won't be able to attend in person and that I'll do the interview online." After that, his mother called him on video to check up on him. When she saw that everything was fine, she hung up so she could finish the procedures inside the hotel. And there, by coincidence, she saw Antoine, her ex-husband, who was standing next to her booking a room. So she tried to avoid him and turned her face away. But when she realized she would be there for a while, she politely said to him, "Good evening. See how small the world is? Antoine, my ex-husband, turned out to be the manager of the rival company that wants to steal my project." Antoine didn't know that she was the person competing against him in the bid, so he tried to be nice, but she didn't give him a chance. She spoke to him in a cold manner, took her passport and went up to her room. On the other side, Vladik returned home and found his grandfather had already finished eating and was now eating with a straw. Vladik asked him about his meal, and the grandfather replied, "Meal times are sacred to me. If you miss lunch, you miss everything." Vladik got annoyed and told him, "We eat whenever we want." But the grandfather told him that these are fixed times for him and not to forget that dinner is at 9 o'clock at night. Then he got up and locked the fridge with a key so Vladik wouldn't steal any food. So Vladik went out to the farm to have breakfast while he was hungry, and suddenly he saw the mulberry tree in the neighbor's yard and wanted to eat from it. But Sonk, the neighbor's son, and his brothers stopped him and said, "You want to steal!" So they wanted to fight with him. But here Vladik got scared of them and ran away, calling for his grandfather. After that, the grandfather took Vladik to the forest and taught him about the different types of trees, how to use them, and how to recognize each kind of tree. For the first time, Vladik felt real enjoyment, far from progress and technology. At dinner time, Vladik saw a picture of his mother when she was young with her father. He noticed that his grandfather was wearing a floral shirt. So the grandfather told him that she had given it to him as a gift. Vladik tried to lighten the mood and said to his grandfather, "And what about that rooster that's always stuck to you?" The grandfather replied, "That rooster is my best friend, and his presence is more important than a lot of people because he's a good listener." And he told him, "When you grow up, you'll understand what I mean." At that moment, their neighbor Colin came in and started eating with them as if nothing had happened, even though that morning they had been arguing about the mulberry tree. But here, Vladik went back to his plan. He took the bag, went to his grandfather's workshop, grabbed a nail and a long rope, and tied the mobile phone to the top of the tree so he could get internet for his laptop while he was on the ground. The next morning, the grandfather woke Vladik up early so they could go fishing. So Vladik had no choice but to get up and go with his grandfather. He was surprised by the old wooden fishing rods his grandfather had. But his grandfather told him that value isn't about money because wood is expensive. He told him that life here is more valuable than in the city because the air is clean and life is simple. So Vladik replied that air conditioners also produce clean air. But his grandfather told him, "I'm talking about nature and how to live in it and rely on yourself." After that, while they were on their way back, Vladik saw Sonic and his friends. He got scared and went to hold his grandfather's hand. His grandfather told him, "You have to be brave and not be afraid of anyone." Afterwards, they went to the market, and there Vladik asked the saleswoman if they had an internet device. She told him, we don't have that kind of device, and honestly, we don't even know what it is. Then Vladek saw a floral shirt in the market that looked like the one in the picture. He wanted to buy it for his grandfather, but his grandfather refused, feeling embarrassed by what people might say and by bullying. After that, they sat down to eat ice cream. The grandfather started telling him about his love story with his wife and showed him the tattoo of her initials on his hand. While they were talking, Vladek gave his ice cream to the neighbor's dog and asked his grandfather to buy him another ice cream. But his grandfather refused and taught him responsibility, saying that since he gave away his ice cream, he had to accept the consequences of his actions. After that, we return to Anya and see her at the hotel while she was working. Suddenly, Antoine comes and tries to get closer to her since he is always analyzing the past. But she turned him down because she wanted to win the contract and return to her son with a lot of money. At the same time, Vladek was filming his grandfather while he was writing a new poem, and he asked his grandfather to either sell his poems or give them to a singer to perform them. But the grandfather refused. So Vladek took his tools and went to climb a tree to build a tree house up there. He made a design, came down, and started working on it, gathering wood and putting a lot of effort into it. But then, Sonk and his gang showed up, so Vladek decided to confront them, thinking he needed to be brave just like his grandfather told him. He pushed Sonk, then grabbed a stick and chased after them. In that moment, he felt that he was brave and could stand up for himself. After that, he went back home. Even though he was injured, at least he tried to defend himself. As for his grandfather, he was overjoyed because his grandson didn't give up, defended himself, and became fierce. So here, he honored him and gave him a watch as a gift. After that, Vladek told his grandfather about his project, which was a robot that mimics people's voices. But the grandfather didn't really understand Vladek. But despite that, he went along with what he was saying. After that, we move to a scene where Anya is sitting and drinking coffee. Then Antoine comes and sits next to her and talks with her. Now we go back in time and learn that Anya had been watching her ex-husband and knew that he was the competitor. This is what made her hold on to the project so she could win the deal and prove to him that she doesn't need him anymore at all. At this time, the grandfather and Vladek were sitting on the tree talking. It's clear that their relationship started to improve more and more, and they began to get used to each other. As for Vladek, he goes to the market, buys his grandfather a shirt, and runs back so he won't be late for lunch. Because after living with his grandfather, he learned that people have to stick to their appointments. And when the grandfather arrived, he was also surprised to see the little chair that he had made for him. At this point, Vladek receives a message from the competition team who reject the idea of an online interview. This means he has to attend in person in order to participate in the competition. So he told his grandfather, "Take me to the city so I can attend the artificial intelligence competition." But the grandfather refused and told him no, because the grandfather had started to get attached to Vladek and didn't want to let him go. So Vladek didn't listen to his grandfather, went to his room, took his things, and escaped through the window. When the grandfather saw him, he took the bag from him. But Vladek didn't give up. He went and teamed up with Sonic, his enemy, to help him annoy the grandfather and get him out of the village. And indeed, the first thing they did was steal the eggs. So the grandfather kept looking for the eggs, and when he couldn't find them, he would go back home and make tea. And when he sat on the chair, he heard a sound and saw the eggs under the chair all broken. After that, they filled his shoes with berries. They also went and let the cow escape and soaked the firewood in water. So the grandfather got angry with them and locked them in the bathroom. When Vladek got out, he took the soapbox and threw it in the house. The grandfather came and tried to hit him, but he couldn't because he loved him and had gotten used to him. Meanwhile, Anya was at the meeting. Suddenly, her phone line opened and she heard her father shouting, telling her she had to leave all her work and everything else and come take Vladek, her son. At the same moment, the grandfather slipped on the soap and the candle fell to the ground. As for Anya, she dropped everything and ran back to her son. As for the grandfather, after the fire broke out, he kept calling his friends to come and help put out the fire. At that moment, Vladek risked his life and ran into the middle of the fire to save his grandfather's rooster. Afterwards, he tried to put out the fire himself, but he couldn't. In the end, he realized his mistake, went to his grandfather and apologized, saying, "I'm sorry for what I did." The grandfather couldn't take it and kicked him out, telling him, "I don't want you anymore." Then the aunt, who was a farmer, came and tried to calm things down, telling him to go easy on the boy because he's still young and doesn't know anything. He's still enthusiastic and impulsive. But here, when the grandfather found out that Vladek had saved his rooster, he quickly got his car, put on his floral shirt, took Vladek, and they went to the city so they could make it to the AI competition. As for Anya, she returned from her trip and found her father's house burned down because of her son. But she found out that they had gone to the artificial intelligence competition, so she remembered how her father had refused to let her travel to the city 12 years ago, and she realized that what was happening in the past was now being repeated by her son. So she followed them to the competition and saw Vladek presenting his project, which was his grandfather's poetry combined with the robot's voice. And when Anya heard the words, she started to cry because she realized how much her father loved her and missed her, and that she had been away from him for 12 years. She hugged her father and began to make amends with him. As for Vladek, he didn't win the competition, but he was happy because his mother and grandfather had reconciled. And from there, Antoine came back and tried to make peace with them too. But Anya refused and took her son and left. She decided that she would live with her son and her father, who had devoted his life to her happiness. And dear viewer, everything you have seen and heard is from the movie to Grandfather Field. En siont kanse ibitowa isiowan ivishan mao.